right, here we are with the man, Dan Hugill. You guys, when I first decided I'd start doing interviews on this podcast, Dan was at the tip top of the list. So I just feel so pumped that he would say yes straight out of the gate. Dan, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Tyler, I'm doing good, man, and it's an honor to be on here. It means a lot to me, and I am honored that you would ask me to be on this podcast. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Um, there's so much we could cover. There's so much story. There's so much wisdom. Um, but before we do that, we so often, Dan, we always want to talk about what we're doing. I know for you, people always want to talk about your story and how you got to where you are. But we're also more than our work. We're more than the nonprofits we do. We're more than so just ask let me ask you this first. You have 300 extra bucks. You have a day or two to yourself, no kids, nothing's on the calendar. Dan gets a day to himself to do what he wants for fun and only for fun, only for joy. What's Dan up to? Give us a look into Dan's just like this sparks joy and life in him. He's got a weekend, a couple $100. What is Dan up to?
That's such a great question, Tyler. If I had 300 bucks and it was all work aside, and it was completely just for my pleasure,
Yes.
I'd probably go buy a sword.
All right. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'd have to, as you know, I collect Chinese weapons specifically from
Yep.
like that are used like with like Shaolin and like Kung Fu. I'd probably have to go find a really cool sword. It'd probably be either like the straight Tai Chi sword, kind of like if you see that one up there,
Yep.
and
Okay.
or like the curve, like the broadsword. I'd have to
Yep.
probably go get a really fancy one because I already have like five or six of each of them.
I
But
love
I
it.
just you can't have enough swords, right?
That's it. I guess I need to get on the game because I don't have any. That's
Yes.
awesome. So what like I love that. And we'll talk all about martial arts. Like that's my favorite question for what it's worth. Like Dr. MJ. I interviewed
Yes.
her yesterday and she told me how she like teaches dance classes and she does salsa and I just was like, I've heard you speak a million times and I didn't know. I didn't know you'd tell me about sword. Like, we're just such interesting people, and we can get so locked up in our niches that I just love learning about the people I love. I love that so much. So what do you do? Like, what do you do, Dan, in your free time? I know you don't have a lot, but what do you do out of your free time when you're just chilling, you're trying to relax? Like, help us get to know like the Dan that's not on podcasts, that's not leading meetings. What's Dan doing when he's chilling? What sparks joy in his day-to-day life?
Oh man, that's a great question. So one of the things that I love to do when I'm chilling, and I talk about this when I go over self-care in some of the classes that I do,
Yep.
but the thing you probably don't know about me is I probably take at least a 30-minute bath every day. And right now I'm reading this science fiction space opera. I didn't even know I was into science
So
fiction
good.
until last year. And man, honestly, just sitting back, I turn the water on really hot and really slow, and I just sit there and read. And
So
it's
good.
like I get the Epsom salt bubbles going, and that is like one of my sanctuaries. I love that. I love practicing. Like I go run with my weighted vest on. I've been doing that like a maniac now.
Yep.
Uh, that's gosh, that's probably one of my favorite self-care things to do is hot baths and like running or boxing or
That's
kung
awesome.
fu.
So let's jump in. That leads me to a question I was gonna ask later, but let's go for that right now. So I'm sitting here in front of one of the physically largest specimens I know. Like I hug you and it's like hugging a cinder block. You got a mohawk, tattoos, you're huge, you're buff. Like in all intensive purposes, you are the epitome of what like Western masculinity is, right? If people didn't know you, you'd be scary. And to be honest, you were scary at one point in your life. Um, but of course there's always these like images of men and what it looks like to be a man and big muscles and big tattoos and we're intimidating and all these things. But you just told me you take a bath every day with Epsom salt and you read in the bath. Could you maybe be in like the person you are, the example you are, the image that you portray? Um, what is something that you've had to unlearn about masculinity over the course of your life? Or maybe what is something you've had to relearn about masculinity? Because here, right, according to the traditional definitions, you're a paradox here, right? Dudes like you don't take baths, right? Um, so what have you learned or relearned, or what do you teach people about masculinity as you've grown in your healing journey and have become the mentor and coach that you are?
Oh, Tyler, that hits me right in the heart because that's been something that's been on, especially like the last 6 months, that has been something that I do with a lot of the population I serve. I think that my original idea of masculinity, Tyler, is you gotta be tough.
Yep.
But I think with a lot of guys, and I see this with a lot of the population I work with, is they have this like attempt to be tough that's not there. It's almost like they have to be confident, but they're confident in the wrong thing. So I see these guys and they act, like face tattoos and they walk around like, "What's up, homie?" And but it's like coming from a place of insecurity.
Mm,
So, and that used to be me too. That used to be me. So I would have this place of insecurity. So I build up these walls of an imitation of strength. It's like I got to walk around tough and like, I'd be drinking and I'd be getting into fights. And I had that to me is the toxic masculinity thing. And I think that so many men these days, they get forced into this spot where they have to feel like they're tough, but they don't have any foundation under that. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for doing something physical in a community, because once you have that and you have people speaking life into you and the iron sharpens iron, it starts to build this true confidence. And I think with that comes just kind of an aura of you don't care anymore. It's almost like the serenity prayer. It's like you become able to accept the things that you cannot change. And if
mm,
you kind of just get it in your head, like, "Hey, God's got this," then you start to not care as much.
yep.
And that's one of the big things what I found with my identity is I used to be like, "This is what I need to be. This is what I want to do. I want people to be scared of me," because I was afraid of being loved and I didn't know how to be loved. So I was like, I think
Mm,
I can settle for being feared because I didn't know if I was respected and I was insecure and I didn't know what people thought about me. But if I act crazy and I'm like scrappy and I'm unpredictable, people will be afraid of me. And that
mm,
was good enough. But that led me ultimately to my demise and my going to prison and then ultimately my redemption.
sure.
But man, man, I hope that answered that,
Yeah.
Tyler. That's kind of my thoughts on that in
Yeah.
this moment.
So the idea almost that like for you, love was the ultimate aim. You wanted to be loved, you wanted to be seen. You didn't know how to cultivate love in your story. But if somebody was scared of you, at least they were paying attention to you. At least they were thinking about you. And it at least gave you some sense of almost connection. It was your way of cultivating or building connection that you didn't otherwise know how to build.
Yeah, absolutely. And like my way of connection is like I was almost afraid of the connection too, but my insecurity would build these tough guy walls and I could come and meet you at that wall, but I had
Yep.
this whole space behind it. And that's like where I stayed and I stayed stuck. And I was just like, oh, I was protecting like maybe we could call it my inner child, maybe we could
Hmm.
call it the inner part of me that was just insecure and didn't want to connect.
Yep. So, how then now that you've gone through what you've gone through, that you've healed, or that you're healing? I think we're always healing, but how do you connect now? So you don't, your people aren't scared of you now, in the ways they used to. You're not the same person. How do you connect? How do you cultivate love? How do you experience love now that you've gone on that journey?
Gosh, that's such a great question, Tyler. Thank you. The way that I experience love now is the way that I found out how to experience was by looking at what God said about me. And it took me a
Mm,
while to really start to believe that, but just finding the love in that, the First Corinthians 13, when he talks about stuff in the Beatitudes, on the Sermon on the Mount, um, that's where I started to actually find my identity. And that's where my goal is constantly to set that as the bar, to set that as the example, and to kind of keep that at the forefront of my mind to the best of my ability. But how I do it now is definitely part of it's servanthood. Part of it's going back out in the community and giving it back and giving
yep.
what back, giving what back. What I had found is a lot of it is doing physical things. I like to do like lots of weightlifting, lots of high intensity functional fitness. I like running. I like boxing. I like martial arts and kung fu. And going out and doing those things, those are the things with the group of people speaking life into me. Those were the things that started to really build me back up because I had found this community. And like
Yes.
a lot of people in certain recovery fields, they say, go find your community, but it's
Yep.
still more difficult than that from my experience.
Hmm.
Because there are some people out there in certain communities where it's like, yeah, they're a community and they're like-minded, but I still didn't have enough in common with them to really trust them or even want to hang out with them. Or I saw like the fruits of what they were doing, and I was like, I don't want a mentor or a group like that in my life. So ultimately, I do believe that once you go out and start doing what you like, you will find the people that you want. And now I have
Yes.
like all these people like over at the boxing gym that speak life. Like we go in there and we do these maniacal workouts. And
Okay.
like it's the workouts where you're looking at everybody else and you're just like, what did we just get ourselves into?
Yep.
And they're looking back, but the whole thing is like nobody's gonna fold on it now. Like you're gonna do your best and you're going, you're sweating and you're peeling yourself off the floor. And then when you get up, somebody helps you up, you go get food after. And it's
Hmm.
stuff like that where it's just like you just feel so a part of it. And then the conversation in those rooms too, after it's like everybody has they're like they have a goal and they're hungry. And it's just like, like when you get around that, you become part of that. Like the five
Yes.
people closest to you, you become like them. And
Yep. Wow. Mm. So community is a huge part of that.
oh yes.
Um, and yet in my office, when I do spiritual direction with people, I mean, loneliness and isolation is one of the primary things at hand. People are lonely, they don't know how to make friends, they're stuck in their phones. You hit on this a little bit, but you're a master at building community. You show up at church, you go around town, and everybody knows Dan. You have a trail of people that you're always bringing around. You're a magnet. I've often referred to you as a magnet. Dan's a magnet. People just, you know, how have you cultivated? Like you're charismatic, you're awesome. So of course people are drawn to you, but you've also cultivated a community just in your own personal life. Like you said, you hadn't always had community. For someone out there who's lonely, who says, okay, maybe I've gotten sober, maybe I've changed my life a little bit, but I'm still lonely, or I don't even know what to do. How would you coach someone to building community or finding a core group of friends? Like you said, we become like the five people we hang out around. Well, what if I'm only on my cell phone all day and I don't even have one? How
Mm.
would you coach someone to build that community that they need in order to grow, to heal, to become their best self?
Love the question. Love the question. And I think that can be difficult. I think it's easier for me because I'm so extroverted and maybe
Sure.
a little ADHD
Sure.
often.
Yes.
But I think especially for someone who's introverted, that could be a little bit more difficult. And my
Sure.
best advice for that would be like find something that you like to
Yes.
do.
Yep.
And then once you find that can be the barrier, that can be the connection. And if even if you can just find one person, say you like playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're an
Yep.
introvert,
Yes.
there are other of you out there.
Yes.
And so I think if you can find one person and then you can kind of just slowly build your community and then all of a sudden you have five people and you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and now you're going out and hanging out together and then something goes wrong, you have somebody to call. Now
Yep.
you have people that can speak life back into you. and,
Yes.
and I always like to have the people that I call for advice they have to have the fruit on the tree for me. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? I can't like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to call somebody for relationship advice who has not walked in those steps before.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in many ways, the idea that so many people have is I'll go find the friends and then we'll do something fun, or I'll go find the people and then we'll do whatever we do. But you're saying maybe building community actually starts within our own self first. That we find what we
Absolutely.
love, what we enjoy, and that can be the pathway or the catalyst to connection, which ultimately is healing. One thing we often say, I know, is that, sobriety, um, of course, the opposite of like addiction is community, and sobriety is only done in community, and it starts from within is really what you're saying here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The opposite of addiction is community. It
Yep.
is that connection because
Yep.
everybody introverted, extroverted, everybody connected. We were created to be social
Yeah.
creatures.
So good. All right, let's get to the crazy stuff so we can get to all the good stuff that you're doing now.
Yes.
But we can't skip the story.
Yes.
We can't skip the story. start wherever you want. Let's start from the beginning. What is the story that made Dan Hugill? Why do they call you the doorman? We've
Okay.
talked all about the transformation, which means we started somewhere. Um, yeah, go with that where you want.
All right, Tyler, let's go. So the story is I gotta start off, I gotta give credit to my parents and my family, my mom and my dad, my grandma, because ultimately I believe that with all of my heart that it was their prayers when I was going through the dark part that put me on the path that I'm on today. I believe that there's power in that. I believe that the more heartfelt, like it says that that God keeps your tears in a bottle, and I know that He has a whole like probably an ocean from what I caused them, and I love them dearly for never giving up on me. But I grew up in a Christian household. It was always just very supportive. Wasn't like I talked to a lot of people and they say things like religious trauma. I never had anything like that. We grew up like the first thing I remember went to New Life Church. I used to work with the preschoolers back in like I think it was like sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And then ninth grade, I stopped doing it because ninth grade, I would bounce back and forth from Evangelical Christian Academy. It was a great school to like public schools. That was kind of difficult because it was like going hot, cold, hot, cold. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you know. And I started going. I remember my dad, it was in 98, 99. He stopped. He was a teacher for years, oh, he's such a good teacher too. Like he just got inducted into the Coaches Hall of Fame about a month ago. And it was such a cool experience. But I remember he was going from Wasson High School. He was like the physics, geology, cross country coach, multiple state champions. Gosh, yeah, he rocks. And then he went to Coronado, and it was one of my friends from ECA was going to Coronado as well that I was really tight with. So I was like, hey, Dad, I want to go to Coronado with you. And I just ride with him in the morning. So I remember it was like before, it was between my eighth grade year and my freshman year. I was like with one of my buddies and we were at this party. And I was like straight edge, but like straight edge with the point of like I didn't know anything about anything. I was ignorant. I remembered the DARE program. I remember the officer would come in and show us all the different drugs and stay away from these. And I was like, okay, I hear you. It didn't work for me um, because we were at this party and everybody was drinking. And so I was about to be a freshman, and these are like eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th graders. And I was just kind of like, man, like you kind of want to be cool in front of them, like people could tell me all day that they aren't going to give into peer pressure, but I mean, get in the actual situation and tell me that. So I'm going to tell you, like, I didn't fold at first on that, but what I did is at that party, like they were drinking and smoking weed and stuff. And I was just kind of like, what do I do here? And part of me wanted to be a part of it. Here, back to being the social creature, back to being with the community, and I wanted to have something in common with these people because like they're older than me, they're cool, right?
Yes.
And so the first drug that I ever did actually was ecstasy because I never heard about it. It wasn't around in the DARE program, and I mean, I probably would have folded anyway by the next party. I'd have been like, yeah, let me try the booze.
Mhm.
So I my buddy, he spotted me the money. We got this pill of ecstasy, and you feel so good. And there's people like doing like the little lotiony massage stuff, and like all you're just like, this is great. And then after I sobered up from that, my brain felt like mush. And I was like, nobody deserves to feel that good. I was like that was fun, but my goodness. Um, so from there, I was just kind of like it definitely had broke down some of the barrier of what I was willing and not willing to do because I remember I was with my same buddy and his sister was 21, and so we saved some of our lunch money. This was our freshman year, and I think I was like 14 years old, and so she gets these bottles. She gets two bottles of Goldschlager, two-fifths of Goldschlager, and two-fifths of butterscotch schnapps. And I'm going to tell you like this, Tyler, in my whole 14-year drinking career, I'm not going to tell you that I ever knew how to drink. Like I never learned how to do it. I never figured it out. And because what we did is we got these big gulp cups, like the big ones that you get, and we dumped both fifths in a cup, kind of cheers, and slammed the whole bottle. And then we did that with the Goldschlager. And I'm talking within 5-10 minutes,
Yep.
two-fifths of high alcohol, high sugary liquor. Like, the Goldschlager's a liqueur, but
Sure.
still like all the sugar and the fact that I'd never drank before. And then I remember we went to the Chapel Hills Mall.
Hmm.
And at first everything was great. I was like, wow, this is cool. I remember like we ran into one of our friends there, and I'm like this close to her face. I'm like, is that you? She's like, you guys are messed up. I was like, yeah. then I remember I ran into two of my other friends there, and that was like the first time I met him. And actually, one of them, he's my tattoo artist now. He's a good buddy of mine. Um, I don't know. We were at the Chapel Hills Mall, Tyler, and the last thing I remember is puking in the sink in the women's bathroom. And I remember it was like this whole scene, and I was just like this kid, and it was just I didn't know what was going on. I woke up in the food court at the Chapel Hills Mall on the top level in front of what used to be the Taco Bell to the security guard poking us. He's like, "You guys need to leave." And I was like, oh. So we called his mom and she came and picked us up. He went to the hospital for alcohol poisoning. And I went to my grandma's house and pretended like I had the stomach flu because I didn't want my parents to know that I was drinking. So, that's one of the whole like, you're sick and you're hitting your head, throwing up on the toilet seat, and you're like, man, God, I'm never going to drink again. And that didn't last long because from there, I found out that I liked alcohol. I liked how it made me feel. It made this awkward kind of version of me. Uh, not so awkward. And it made me feel like I fit in more. It made me feel more social, the social thing again. It made me feel like I started to have this community, albeit maybe in high school, we experiment with stuff, but it was this like kind of toxic. It's toxic ultimately, and I was around the wrong influence at that time, but ultimately that led me to where I am today. So from there, we made fake IDs, and I think you'll appreciate this. Like when we were 15, we made fake IDs, and you know who Glenn Danzig is, right? The lead singer of the Misfits,
Of
Danzig.
course, of
So
course.
that was my name on my fake ID. I remember I
That is
walked in.
so funny.
Yes. I remember I walked into this liquor store. It was Colorado Wine and Spirits, I think. It was over there. It's like Austin Bluffs or it's Union and Academy. And I walk in and I hand him my ID and I'm just like sitting there shook. And he looks at it and he just starts laughing. And then he still sells me the alcohol.
That's
And
so funny.
yeah, yeah. So like, and at this point in my lifetime, like I played sports all through growing up. My dad was like, "You're playing this," and sometimes I loved it. Sometimes I was like, I didn't like it so much. But the whole thing is I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for that athletic experience because that's a part of community that I think that my dad, without even knowing it, kind of stuck with me that carried on to me this day. But at that point, Tyler, like I got to this point by the time I was 16, I was drinking every day. And with that fake ID, it made me pretty popular at school. I'd always have a ride at lunch and we could leave. And so what we do is we'd go down Fillmore to that purple pink liquor store, just right over there. It's like kind of over getting like by like where the KFC and the Big O tires used to be. And we'd go and we'd drink and then we'd like try to run to McDonald's real quick and get some food, or I'd just go get drunk and come back. And we did that all the time. And it
And
got
how old
started
are
into
you
this.
at this point?
16, 17 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like we were drinking, and that 16 was actually the first time that I went to jail. I remember we were over at the Walmart on Vindicator in Centennial, and we were just hanging out there because we were like a bunch of my friends that went to Coronado. They lived in that neighborhood, and there was this kid. He went in and he drew all over the bathroom wall with a marker, and we were out there. And then so they called the cops. The cops showed up. They searched my backpack and my friend's car, and I had a pair of nunchucks. And I tried to tell the cops I did jujitsu, and they're like, "You don't use nunchucks in jujitsu." I was like, "Oh, he knows." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, that sucks." But my buddy, he had a butterfly knife, and I tried to take the rap for that. I went to jail for 6 days. Uh, got out. That sucked. Spring Creek was horrible, and I remember I got out. I was on house arrest, and I'm still going to school. And like my friends would like drive me over and sneak me in liquor to my parents' house. And I got a mental health diagnosis, and they called me hypomanic. I don't know how much that stuck. I mean, maybe it makes sense. I don't know. I'm not really like a firm believer. Like I don't like to speak negativity, but also I like to kind of know what's going on up here. I just think that maybe I was a kid that was just insecure and wanted to fit in, but I was a little up and down with my emotions, but maybe that's normal at that age. Um, yeah, so I from that point, like I was really into like punk and hardcore music, and it's still got a very special place in my heart to this day.
Yes.
Like I'm X'd up, straight edge, you know what I'm
I
saying?
love it.
Yes. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, but at this point, I started to get pretty aggressive. I was lifting weights. I was getting a little bit into martial arts stuff, but I was getting into martial arts for the wrong reason. I did Vietnamese jujitsu. It was like this like Vietnamese kind of style of jujitsu. It's very like street, and I loved that. And I was going to renew my membership, and I stopped at this place. It was called the Chinese Shaolin Center, and I watched their little video, and I looked at it, and I was like, this is really cool. So I got pretty involved with that. And I'm actually I'm a student again. I'll get to that part of the story here in a minute, but to this day, I'm still a student of that art, which is great. But
Yeah.
I started using all this like to be kind of aggressive. Like I remember I got done with my weightlifting class after school and I was drunk and I tried to start a fight with these kids that were parked across the street from a different high school. I tried to fight them. They did not even want to fight, but I tried to start a fight with them and ended up escalating to this whole thing where the school cop came and we got out of there and went and got some alcohol, went to my buddy's house and I got a page. This was back in the pager days. So on my pager, it was the school counselor. I had to go back in and talk to her and looked at my friend and I was just like, man, what do I do? And this was the first time I did meth. And man, it felt like Popeye. It felt like when you eat that spinach, like I had like that liquid courage from the alcohol and just this
Yeah.
euphoric energy that just fired through me. That created a whole monster right there. It didn't suspend me or expel me or
No.
anything, but the gal like that when I went back in to talk to him, she was like he was talking really fast and he reeked like alcohol. And so my dad, a teacher at this school, not just like a very renowned teacher, like honors physics, cross country, multiple state champions. And it just felt so bad because with him, he just tried he does so good. Like he truly has a heart to help these people, but then yet here I am just acting like a knucklehead. But I
Sure.
mean, all things work together for good, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
So I ended
you're
up
how old? You're how old you so you just did meth for the first time. How old
yeah,
are you now?
still 16.
So still 16. So we're getting drunk every day. Now we're trying meth. The violence is increasing. You're
Yes.
getting more and more violent. So the more drugs, the more alcohol, also the more violence is all
Correct.
increasing. Okay.
Yes. Oh
And
yeah.
all still 16. Sweet 16.
Yeah, sweet 16, sweet, aggressive, violent 16.
Yeah.
Then like my junior year is actually when I left high school early. Ultimately, I did go back and graduate, but I was in this like punk hardcore kind of like thrash band. It was called the Commubots. It was the communist robots, and we weren't communists or anything. It was just like I know it's a little bit more touchy these days, but it was just a joke. The whole joke of the
Yep.
band was about Stalin coming back to life as a robot, and like this whole like it was we had some great songs. We had Soviet Reunion. We had the Red Scare. Like it was like it was fun. But like I
Yep.
draw the little logo for it on my test papers, and I remember the history teacher. She came in and she was all upset, and she like put it down and she started cussing at me. So I started cussing at her. It was 10 a.m. and I was drunk, and I got up with a little attitude because I was getting out
Yep.
of her class, and I flipped the desk over, but I tripped on it while I was doing it, and I got all super mad. She called security. Security ended up coming up, and I tried to fight them. They de-escalated me and walked me off. And I walked down to the Waffle House on Fillmore. I called my mom. My dad hasn't. He's teaching a class, I'm assuming, but I was just like, I left. She's like, what do you mean you left? I was like, I left. I'm not going back. So
Mm.
I left high school and ultimately I went back to graduate through an alternative school, EOP Bijou. But like this is the time when everything started to get dark because like I'm a pretty aggressive person because I have that insecure part of me that has to build up these walls and build this armor of a tough guy. And I'm on meth on the weekends at this point, and I'm drinking every day, but I still want to keep doing these drugs, but I don't want to get a job. So I started hanging out with some of the people because the people I'd buy drugs from were they'd already graduated high school. They were like 19, 20 years old. So I started hanging out with them. Um, and this is probably like a year or two ago, but I start selling for him just a little bit. And I remember like one of the times he came in and he was all upset. And, you know, like I was aggressive and I was like, yeah, I'll go beat up anybody. You know, I probably couldn't beat up anybody, but I didn't know that. But I remember this one day he came and he was all mad because the people that these people owed him money. And I was like, all right, well, where do they live? And we drove over there and I was all, you know, trying to like show off for this dude. And man, Tyler, I always like to say it like this. It's like, you know, like if you smoke a cigarette or hit a vape for the first time, you get this rush. But after you do it a few times, you start to lose the rush and it just becomes normal. And this is what high intensity, like breaking and entering and kicking people's doors in became for me. And this is where it started to call me Doorman Dan. I also got a job as a bouncer shortly after this for 9 years because I was selling drugs. It was a cover-up job, basically, for me to be able to get drunk, sell drugs, and like just live a party lifestyle. And uh, we went in. I walk up to this person's door. I kicked their door in, just kicked it right off the thing. And it was just a highly aggressive situation. I was yelling at them about owing money. And it was just like adrenaline. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like this. So I was just like, hey, man, if anybody ever owes you money, let me know. And that started to carry into what I did. And I started to like, this fed that lifestyle of mine that wanted to be that wanted the attention, that wanted to be tough, that had that whole like building up the walls even more. Now it's like, okay, if I can be feared, this is like now we're getting to like the ultimate level of this, or what was my ultimate level of this. So I carried on like that forever. I sold drugs for multiple different people, like involved and affiliated with multiple gangs, like not a gang member, but highly affiliated, just with what came with the lifestyle. I was working at a motorcycle club bar that did rap shows, and everybody hated each other. And so that was fun because I get to throw some people around and think I was tough. And while I was selling drugs, and I would drink more in a night than I would actually make working there. But I made the money from selling drugs, and Tyler, like that ultimately led to like I was never a good drug dealer because I was so drunk, I was sloppy, I was greedy, and I was aggressive, and it ultimately ended up being my downfall, man. Because like 2000, like I'm gonna like really fast forward between that chunk. 2012, I've been doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Like there's a day we robbed a bunch of drug dealers. Like I had this person, he was this prison gang guys, got out of prison. He came down and we went around the town and we were like trying to do some like organized crime stuff. Like, hey, you're gonna buy from us. And so we robbed a bunch of people. And in the midst of that, there were these two people that I was like, hey, you're buying from me now. You're buying meth from me now. And they ultimately ended up telling on me. They got in trouble, and then they started building this case on me. The cops started watching what I was doing and building a case. And in 2012, I was on my way to go. I ran out of drugs, and I was going to get more from one of my buddies. And I got set up with the cops by this dude's girlfriend, and they ended up getting me. And it turns out I had 3 warrants for distribution manufacturing because those two people that were the product of us going and robbing those people, I found out they told on me and they were building a case. So I had sold 3 times to an undercover that they had set up, but I was so drunk that and just dumb and greedy that I just ignored the spider sense, if you will, that something was off because I didn't care. And
Yep.
that was the first time I went to jail as an adult. Yeah, 3 counts of felony, 3 distribution, manufacturing, a Schedule II controlled substance, and yeah, that was hectic. So I was on felony probation, and I remember I got an assault charge and a bunch of stuff. Remember Ivy Wild?
Yes, I do. I
Yeah,
do. Here, I'll jump in here really quick. So there's this time, yeah, dog. You. You're good.
yeah.
You
Oh
got
yeah. So sorry. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this story, like, we'll fast forward some of the change here. So Dan and I, for those of you who don't know, we both go to the same church now, and Dan has been at that church way longer than me. It's a church where I pastor at, and so I get to this church. Dan is like the core community leader. He's the recovery leader, all of this. So I take Dan out for coffee. We first meet, and he starts telling me this story that you've all been hearing. And he tells me about picking up this assault charge at this place called the Ivy Wild School. And he's telling me the story. And for those of you who have listened to the podcast earlier or know my story, I opened a coffee shop and a cocktail bar in this place called the Ivy Wild School. And being a bartender, you get to see a lot of things like this or whatever. But Dan starts telling me the story. Man, we're in this fight, this parking lot. It's in this old school. Long story short, I was the one who had called the cops on Dan. The very man I'm sitting here with on this podcast today, I had called the cops on him, which sent him behind bars for a little bit there. And then you fast forward a handful of years, and now we work at the same church together. And I could
Yes.
just remember being at Loyal Coffee being like, dog, I was the one who called the cops on you that moment, and man, and now we're here. So yes, I very much remember it. It's one of the coolest stories I get to tell. That man,
I love it.
I sent you behind bars for a few minutes, and now here we are doing the good work together. Oh, it's such a good story.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
so glad we got to talk about that part
yeah.
too. Oh, Tyler, thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you catch this assault case. I
Yeah.
mean, it's chaos now. The tornado is spinning. You're rolling around.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, there was that, and somebody pointed me out on Facebook. These were like all my high school friends, and like 9 guys tried to jump my buddy, and I ended up punching. So I ended up knocking 2 dudes out, and then like 9 guys got beat up at that. And then they were like, they called the cops on the 3 people that beat. I was like, that's not cool. I was like, you guys shouldn't have started it. But yeah, it was funny. But man, like Tyler, this part of my life, this is like where I was about to be at my rock bottom, man, because I had these counts of distribution manufacturing. I started like you'd think that a normal person would just like try to chill out at this point. This is when I started using a needle, man. I started IV using meth at this point. And everything just went down. Like the place where I was bouncing at, they're like, you can't work here anymore. Like you bring too much heat to this place. And it started going down. I was racking up all these charges. I was in and out of jail. I'd leave people with money so that I could get bonded out. And they'd go and they'd bond me out. And like, it was crazy, man. Like my list of charges, like counterfeiting money, identity theft, distribution, manufacturing, assault, aggravated robbery. Me and two of my buddies, we were on at the very end of everything. We were on the news for armed robbery in 2014. What had happened is we got to this house because ultimately the story goes now, like I can tell the story how it is because I already got in trouble for it, is we had intention of robbing this person. He was a drug dealer. Turns out one of my buddies that I was with owed him money. My buddy that I was with, he lived up at this house and he lived with this gentleman's sister, the gentleman who was the drug dealer. So that was his roommate. So like, hey, just have him meet you there. You get him there with the drugs, and then me and my other buddy will handle the rest of it. So we didn't know that our buddy, the one that lived there, owed this guy money. So we're up there waiting for this guy to show up, and he comes pulling up all angry, gets out of the car. We're standing outside. This is on the north side of town at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we know the north side of Colorado Springs is crazy stuff doesn't happen as often up there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like a very nice neighborhood. And he comes up and he gets out of the car and he starts walking towards my buddy like he's going to do something. And I look at my other homie. I'm like, hey, man, this guy looks like he wants to fight. Like, what's going on here? And we're passing back and forth this bottle of whiskey. Like, homie, here, hold this. So I hand him the whiskey. This guy walks up and he goes and he grabs my boy by the shoulders. I walk up, put my arm on him like escort bouncer stuff, hand on the shoulder position, spin him to the ground, and he face plants into the concrete. My one homeboy, he's like, hey, man, he's got a gun. I was like, you got a gun? You got dope? I was like, where's it at, man? So like I'm going through it, but then sister sees what's going on and comes out because I got her brother like on his face. My other friend comes up and cracks him in the head with a pistol. And like she comes up, she grabs me, she's screaming, yanking me off of him. And I was like, we're making too much of a scene. I stand up, she's screaming, this dude's on the ground. It's 3 in the afternoon in this very, very classy neighborhood. I was like, we need to abort mission, guys. Let's get out of here. So it's in this cul-de-sac. And we go up, like I hop in the front, my buddy hops in the back, and the guy driving who lived there, he starts driving. So we go up and we flip around the cul-de-sac, and this guy does have a gun. And he like pop, 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 pop. A bullet goes through the window and hits the dashboard right in front of us, hits the hood of the car, and hits the rim of the tire. So 3 of the 5 shots hit the car we were in. I was like, drive, fool. And we drive, and I got blood coming out of the side of my face from the glass that it came through, and there's like pieces of dashboard in my hair. I don't even know. And the next day we were on armed robbery. We were on the news for armed robbery because this guy said that we had robbed him at gunpoint and shot him. I mean, he only told half the truth, but they
Sure.
ended up going back and finding this dude's gun. And yeah, but it was hectic. We were on the news. We went and turned ourselves in, and then after that, I got bonded out again. But my PO called me this time, and she was like, "Mr. Hugil." She was like, you cannot stop getting in trouble. She's like, you need to come in and see me, and we're going to take you into custody. And this is the first time I was ever really disrespectful to this woman. I basically cussed her out and said, come get me. And like, man, Tyler, this was the scariest part of my life. Like I was on a lot of meth, but I wasn't one of the paranoid, like tweakers, you know
Sure.
what I'm saying? Like, because I think that was because I drank so much, but this time I was paranoid. Because I was like, I don't know. And I was such a low, I don't know if it was like 2 weeks, 2 months that I was on the run. I just couldn't tell you. Everything was such a blur. But I know the bounty hunters were going around looking for me because my friends were like, "Hey, man, these guys showed up and they're looking for you. They're bounty hunters or cops or something." And so I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yep.
And I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready to face the music. And they ended up setting me up with my parents. They My dogs lived with my parents. Both of my dogs, Tova and Hammer, had 2 pit bulls. And they're like, your dog's got out. And so I wake up, and then, Tyler, this was at the worst because I was shaky from drinking. I woke up, talked to my mom. I was like, I got to go find my dogs. I had to drink a pint of 90 proof peppermint schnapps to stop shaking before I could hit my arm so I can just get normal. This just made me normal at this point. And then I get dropped off up the street, and I'm walking up the alley. I'm looking for them. I go in the back door of the house because I'm going to get something to drink or see if they found the dogs. And there's the bounty hunters. And this is where I realized how deconditioned I had become physically because I was very athletic, martial arts, all that stuff growing up. I went and I hopped the fence, ran, made it 200 meters, ended up eating it in the rocks and like bleeding everywhere, and they got me. And I went to jail from that point. I had like all kinds of felony bonds, like felony holds on me for all the different warrants because
Yep.
the judge got me. That's when I
Yep.
went to jail,
Yep.
and it was hectic.
Pause for just a second. if I remember the story right, you came to get the dogs because your parents had told you that your dogs were out or your dogs were lost,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, an interesting part of the story here is that your parents were in on it.
Yep.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that to this day. And I didn't actually know that until I came back from prison for my reconsideration. And I heard my dad say it in court. And I think that at that point, he probably, because then if I would have known, I'd have blown a gasket and flipped my lid. If I'd have been like, "You
Yes.
guys are snitches. What did you tell them?"
Yep. Yep.
I'd have, gone the victim route on it.
Yep. So here we are at the lowest. You're just to even get even, just to get your clear head. We're drinking, we're doing meth, just to get straight. Mom and dad work with the bounty hunters and trick you to come home, puts you in jail. Every case you've ever had catches up to you at this point, and you're going behind for a minute now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Going behind for a minute. My attorney, he was all like, I was all like, "We got to fight this. We got to beat it." I was like, "We can beat these." He's like, "It doesn't work like that." He's like, "You got to beat all of them." I was like, "What? What? I can't beat the ones that they aren't going to stick." He's like, "That's not how this works." They were like, if you fight this and you lose, you get 48 years in prison. That's what they were offering me.
Yep.
I was like, "That's a big number." They
Yes.
usually throw the big number first.
Yes.
Yeah. And
So tell us a little bit about your experience inside jail and
yes.
then how things began to shift for you.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the whole story because this is where God shows up. And sometimes when I tell it like this, Tyler, I call it the three surrenders because I had three big surrenders at this point in my life. The first one is when they got me. I'm in the county jail. I'm in CJC, and I got my reputation. But I'm at the same time, I'm like, I'm ready to change. I can't keep living like this. And so I have a desperation moment, and I'm like, God, and I take the Bible and I open it, and I'm just like, boom. Psalm 18. And like a good thing he didn't land me in like Leviticus or Numbers, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what does the Mosaic covenant have anything to do with this? You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, but it was Psalm 18, and I truly believe that God spoke to this my dumb. And I love that I saw a meme that said God has factored in, like when God made the plan for your life, he factored in your stupidity. And
Yeah.
I think I need that more than anybody. But
It's like the saying, how it's like your best thinking is what got you here. Like they say that in AA all the time. Like
yeah.
your best thinking got you here. You can't do this by yourself because your best self got you to this meeting.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's where my best thinking gets me. And I know that I think better now, but it still doesn't mean I'm going to go out and drink, just because I don't know what's going to happen. And so like, I got to stay away from that stuff. But man, yeah, but Tyler, man, when I opened that to Psalm 18, that's what hit me so hard because it was, just, it was just King David. King David always, warrior king, but always getting himself into a wreck. And I believe that David was in a wreck when he wrote this Psalm because basically he's just like, God help me. God steps off and hears it. And God comes flying down with rage and the dark clouds around him, and God's upset. And we all know what happens when God gets upset as things start to happen. And then it goes into talk about like after this, the lightning and the burning coals are coming down, the blast of God's breath. He lays the foundations of the earth bare, and he picks David up and he puts him in a safe place. And now in my mind, I'm all like, God, David's a man after your own heart. You even say this in the scripture. I was like, I'm not. I was like, can this be my story? And I start crying, but I had to pull a blanket over my head while I was crying because if somebody sees me crying in CJC, you better believe I'm going to be in the shower knuckling up with somebody in a minute to protect my reputation. That's just how it had to be.
Yep.
And that was my first surrender. I was like, what do we got to do? And so then from there, I ended up, the judge let me get bonded out to go to a 30-day inpatient treatment. And I was serious now. I was serious, but now you know how it is like, when you're serious, everybody else still thinks you're a snapcase. So I had to understand that. I went to a 30-day inpatient rehab. I got through it. I started getting heavily involved in 12-step. And then I went to prison for 12 years, December 15th, 2014. I was like, I got this. And, looking back, I wouldn't change any of it. I went in front of a judge in Division 12 in Colorado Springs, and he looked at me and he said, Mr. Hugil, he's like 90, 100 days. It was 146 days sober. He's like, I don't care. He's like, you're a terror to society. And so I took an open plea, and he was like, Mr. Hugil, I'm giving you 12 years in the Department of Corrections. Slammed that thing down. And I was like, but the thing is I didn't get any crimes of violence. I pled to distribution, manufacturing, nonviolent, simple robbery, identity theft, and first-degree criminal trespassing. And he left it open for reconsideration. And then we go to prison, Tyler. And that's new kid in school, never been there before, a little bit nervous. I had my second surrender in DRDC. DRDC is where they send you when they're trying to find out what prison they're going to put you at. That's where they do like the assessments, the pointing, like the points are based on like your past history, your age, all these different factors, whether you're going to go to a higher facility, a medium, or like a camp or a lower one that everybody wants to be at. And there, my second surrender, they did the altar call there. Like it was 23 and 1 lockdown. I was on that for a couple of months during transport, but they did that and I was like, I need to be at that. So I go down, they do the prayer. It's nothing spectacular. I go back up to my cell and I had my supernatural experience with God. And I swear it smelled like rain. It was humid. And like I felt the spirit like sitting next to me. And I had this conversation with him. And I was just like, what is this? Like a seminary? He's like, yeah, it's something like that. I was like, what do I do? He's like, don't worry about it. I'm with you. And like at that point in my life, like it's where I started to build my faith muscle. I was like, that was like the first rep of the faith muscle. And I was like, yeah, that's way easier said than done. But that's when I was like, I started to try to trust him. And
Wow.
ultimately, now it's much easier. I'm not going to tell
Sure.
you that it's not like putting up 400 pounds, but
Yeah.
it's a lot easier now
Yeah.
to trust. But that was a crazy experience. Like that was probably the most sober-minded supernatural experience, like
Yes.
with the physical involved that I've ever had.
Yeah. So you're in jail. You open yourself up to God. Even though you didn't know what that even meant necessarily, you go to this altar call. You go into your cell and you have this mystic experience where
Yes,
you in the natural world experience something supernatural.
yes,
And I'm curious about that. Like so often people will sit in my office, they'll say, I did all these things and I still can't find God, or how come I can never experience God? And yet here you were at the low, facing the consequences for myriads of your actions, and you had this experience. What do you say to someone who says, I want that experience, or I want to feel the love of God, or I want to have a mystic encounter that changes everything, you know, because it's not like math. It's not like something that we can just drum up and build up. So what do you say to someone who says, I've never had that, or I would change if I knew God was real because God met me in a humid prison cell? Um, I know it's a kind of a huge question, and I'm not even looking for theology, but I'm just curious, what do you think like cultivated the environment for you to experience divine love in that sort of way in that moment?
that's a great question, Tyler. And I think honestly, I think that at that point, I think that if I were to tell somebody, if I were to give from my experience and my advice, is I didn't have an expectation of what I wanted it to look like. And I think people are looking for something different. I was just broken and at the bottom of the last, I was at the end of the rope. I was broken, and I wasn't like, God, will you show up in this way, or like you need to show me, or fill the sponge with water, or remove. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like I was just like I wasn't looking for an experience. I was just
Yes.
like hurt, and
Yes.
in my hurt is where he met me.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
So you have this experience in prison, and things start to shift. Start building us out from the depths here. Start taking us to the Dan that we know now.
absolutely. So prison, new kid in school. I went to Bible studies. I went to 12 step, and I worked out with a bunch of gang members who I love and still talk to this day. And it started to rebuild me. I found the community in there, Tyler. In the darkest place, I started to find the community. And prison was fun, actually. Like mindset's everything. It was a blast.
Yes.
But ultimately, after in 2016, it was in April. They had just broke up Unit 2 because they were moving some people in from Wyoming, and I got a they called me they called me when I was in Unit 8. They moved me from Unit 2 to Unit 8, and they like pack it up. I was like, what do you mean pack it up? They were like, you're leaving the facility, pack it up. I was like, oh, anxiety. Went down, one of the church brothers prayed for me because I was like, maybe they're doing my reconsideration. So I had to put in for the 35B, the motion to reconsider. And so they actually ultimately did it. And I went back and oh, going to the county jail sucks, man. The county jail's horrible. I'm just like, oh, back to this food. And it was in there that I had my third surrender. And my third surrender is where it really started to turn around because this is where I think God was trying to get me. Because I went back in front of the judge, Tyler, and he was like, I don't know why I ever said I'd reconsider this. And that was where I had to have the ultimate serenity prayer moment. Like, God, help me to accept the things that I cannot change, to be able to understand or to be able to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I was like, I have to accept that this time. So when I got back, I was like, God, if you want me to be in prison for some more years, that's where you want me to be. And I fully accept that. And I truly meant it from my heart. I was like, cool, that's it. We're good.
Wow.
Then I went back in front of the judge again, but I didn't go in front of the judge. They put me in front of the it was the DA. The DA is the person that
Hmm.
wants you to be in prison. They
Yep.
represent the people. And then it was my attorney and it was the sheriff deputy. The DA was like, Mr. Hugil, I can see that you've changed. I was like, coming
Wow.
from you, that's great. Cool, because I feel like that. And man, Tyler, they granted my reconsideration. They put me into a specialty drug court program. That was like a 2 year thing with the whole. I started with a zero tolerance. Usually it's a 3 strike per part program. With me, it was zero tolerance. The judge was like, if you mess up, you're going back for what you had and then some.
Yep.
But Tyler, I did it, man. I started going. That's when I started church hopping. I went to New Life Church. I went back
Yep.
and lived with my parents for a little bit, and I got a job, and I went from, man, what it is, 10 years ago, like 9 years ago,
Yes.
having nothing, living with my parents, to today. And man, God showed up, bro.
So you were sentenced for 12 years.
Correct.
And how many years did you spend?
Did a year and a half.
You did a year and a half. So again, let's note here. 12 years was your sentence. It could have been 40 something,
Yep.
but you plead your way through to 12.
Yep.
You do a year and a half and get out.
A year and a half and get out. Yes, like you're for sure. Like, God showed up. God showed up. And I'm not even gonna say God showed. I believe that it could have been longer, but I firmly believe that with working through Him through all of that and just
Yep.
walking in obedience to the best of my ability, I
Yeah.
believe that it took a year and a half for Him and myself working together to get me where He needed me for me to
Yep.
be allowed to be released.
Yes. And I think what I so appreciate about this story, Dan, is that yes, you did a lot of work and you worked very hard. But the posture through which you've actually shared this story, what got you over 1 year or a year and a half to change so much, wasn't even that you worked out so much, that you read so much of scripture, that you were doing step work, but is that you let go. In fact, you completely surrendered. And
Yes.
that it was actually the grand surrender, it was the grand letting go that got you to the place where you needed to be. Why do you think that's so hard for us, I suppose, to grasp? Like, we're always wanting to work hard, we're always trying to work our way up to the top, and we find ourselves rarely where we want to be when we're just grasping so much. And for you to say, man, I was able to work my way out of a 12-year prison sentence, not by my effort, but actually by letting go.
Yes.
Speak it just a little bit more into what does surrender look like? Because again, I think what can be confusing is you work very hard. You lift weights all day. You're building a new nonprofit. Step work is the hardest work. Like, you still worked, but the story is I surrendered everything. So what is that balance? What does that mean to like work hard but also let go? You don't get here without doing no work.
Yes.
You don't get out without doing any work, and yet surrender is the name of the game. I believe that with my whole heart too.
Oh yeah.
So what is that marriage of like hard work and surrender, effort and release? How do you reconcile that in your life?
And I think that ultimately it becomes multiple layers of surrender work, surrender work, surrender work. And what that looked like for me, like what surrender to me, Tyler, is, and I think that the reason it's so different, because like you were saying, like you hold on to all these things because all those things have perceived value for you. And when
Yes.
you value something, you don't want to let go of it. But like, have you ever seen like the picture? It's like the little kid and Jesus, and they're standing together, and he's got this gigantic teddy bear behind his back, and she's holding this little teddy bear, and she's
Yes.
like I don't want to let go, and he's like, but I have something better for you.
Yep.
Like that's so true, because like when I let go of my ego, of my fear, of my everything, of my strong desire to get out of prison, and I just accepted, cool, we're in prison. Then he was like, all right, cool. Like I had
Yep.
become mentally and spiritually freed at that point. Like it
Yes.
did, my surroundings didn't matter because I was free.
Yes.
And he freed me physically after he freed me physically, like spiritually, emotionally, mentally, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like lock myself up and do dumb stuff often these
Yep.
times, but now it's like I have to surrender something again. So that's now like where in my life now it's like I'll do something dumb or I'll like get attached to something over here and I'm like, I gotta give it up. And then he's, you know, like with fear, like that's a big one too. It's
Mhm.
like I try not to operate in fear. When I start to get afraid, I'm like, oh, I got it here, but then sometimes I'll try to take it back. No, give me that
Yes.
fear back. And he's
Yep.
like, you know, just give it back to me. He's like, all right, cool.
Oh,
He's like, I got
so
something better when you want to give it up.
yep. Oh, yeah, it's hard to receive a new gift if your hands are clenched.
Yes,
But it's only when we let go that we can receive a gift.
absolutely.
So you're out at this point, and you start getting sober, you start going to church, you start working through. What's those next handful of years look like as you begin to rebuild your life after prison?
Excellent. Excellent. So right from there, I got a job. Two of my very good friends helped me get a job landscaping when I got out. It lasted like 2 months, then I got laid off. Um, I going to church often. I was with my parents. It was good just to steady. I like to tell it like this to guys getting out of prison or guys in early recovery. Just do one thing a day towards your goal. Take baby steps because if you overwhelm yourself, that bottle starts looking delicious. So that's what I do. I'd like go to the DMV and get my license reinstated. Then I'd go hang out. Then I'd go, you know, go to the social, the DMV, the DHS office, and like go get your Medicaid. You know, like I started this one thing a day, and it kept it manageable to the point where I started to have more of a capacity.
Yep.
And once you build your capacity, you know, you start to be able to accomplish more. And so I from landscaping, I got a job at Peaks Recovery Centers, just like as a house manager. Like this got my foot in the door to do a job working in recovery. That
Yep.
job was hard. It was
Yes.
hard and it didn't pay well. It was driving people all over the place, and it was nuts.
Yep.
But it got my foot in the door for recovery. I got certified as a peer recovery coach. I had met the woman who ultimately I'd have my two children with, which
Yep.
was great. We're not together anymore. We're still cool, but it's that part is great. I have a 5-year-old son named
Yeah.
Asher now and a 3-year-old daughter named Bella, and they are two of the absolute biggest joys and
I
blessings in my
love
life.
it.
And oh, they're so cool.
Yes.
But I worked for Peaks Recovery Centers for almost 2 years, going to the gym. I went to the Phoenix pretty often. It was a
Yep.
great program. Um, and then ultimately, the Phoenix ended up kind of offering me a job from Peaks Recovery Centers. And I'm grateful for that because the fitness part was so incorporated in my lifestyle. If we're talking like, you know, like the peer coaching 8 dimensions of wellness, the physical and the spiritual were like, I've always been two of my bigger focuses. And so the physical part, the Phoenix, they helped me. I got a bunch of like the certificates behind me. They helped me get certified as like a CrossFit level 1, level 2 coach, an adaptive and inclusive trainer. I work with people with like work with seated athletes, people who have people with Down syndrome, helping them like tailoring workouts to them so they can be a part of the community and be involved in the fun. Olympic weightlifting, Tai Chi certified through the Shaolin Center, the 7-star Phoenix. I'm an Olympic weightlifting coach, NASM youth exercise specialist.
So
I
good.
started to get all these abilities to be able to do what I loved, and that's the fitness
Yes.
and the community aspect of it.
Yes.
And then
So good.
yeah. And then I'm in my second house right now. I almost sold it last year, but I have a really good rate on it. And everybody's like, if you sell it, you're dumb. And I thought about it for me. I was like, okay, you're right. So I kept my house. Yeah.
Love it.
But yeah, and I did that. And I went to Peaks Recovery Centers. I was an activities director there now in the beginning of the year. I went to get to the bridge in a second, but I co-founded a nonprofit about 6 years ago. I remember I sat down with Dr. E from the Sanctuary Church where we're going. And he was all like, man, we're looking for someone to help run recovery stuff. So I think it was close to 6 years ago, we started the Set Free meeting over there. And that meeting's just been a blast. And I'm just so grateful to all the leadership that stepped up to help me with that because we have like a different leader running it almost every Sunday. And we get to get multiple aspects. It's an all recovery program. So it doesn't follow anything, but it's inclusive of all these programs. It could be like 12-step smart recovery, you know, like faith-based. It's a faith-based meeting, absolutely, but it brings multiple like a lateral view of
Yes.
recovery. Like,
Yeah. It's so good.
yeah,
So, so you get out and pretty much you end up in the recovery world and you just leverage every bit of your passion to help build community and help people do recovery, and go through their steps. Um, let's talk about the bridge real quick, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you're a busy man. Um, so all of that work ends up getting you to starting this new project you have called the bridge. What's the bridge? Tell us all about it. Give us the skinny on the bridge.
Cool, Todd. Thanks. Yeah, so the bridge we started it ultimately as a way as a means to help people transition from the Department of Corrections. I tried and be involved with some other organizations doing some work in the prisons, but they just couldn't make it happen. So I was like, we need to bridge this. So my buddy Matt Clovis and I was going and I was volunteering at a bunch of the different prisons with the fitness programs they'd have. I specifically want to shout out RF2, the Redemption Road Fitness Foundation. They do like a CrossFit behind the walls, amazing program. And I'd go and I'd coach with these guys and I'd see how it was breaking down like racial and gang barriers. And I loved that. And so me and my buddy Matt, we went down to Trinidad a couple of years ago. This was like probably 2.5 years ago, and worked out with him. And I was like, my whole goal was to introduce him to the magic of what's going on here. Like, hey man, like you want some purpose? Here's some purpose. And we're driving back after like the first or second time we did this. And he was just like, man, like he's like, because I've been mentoring guys getting out of prison since like 2018. And he's like, man, you just do all this stuff. He's like, you just do this, you just do this. I was like, yeah, I just do this. He's
Yep.
like, dude, it's beautiful. He's like imagine the impact we could have if we turn this into potentially a nonprofit
Yep.
organization. Just think of how we could multiply the impact.
Yes.
And so that's kind of was the start of it. I was like, okay, that sounds big, but let's do it. And
Yep.
so the whole mission statement behind it is we help people transition out of the Department of Corrections with recovery, fitness, purpose, leadership, mentorship. We add all these things, and it was basically the thought behind it is like the things that I needed when I got out.
Yep.
We kind of go kind of roughly on that,
Yep.
but like tailor it to different people. And we work with the recovery community. It's very restorative justice focused, which means we bring the community victims. We haven't done that part yet, but ultimately that's what we
Yep.
want to do. Helping families reunite. We
Yes.
have them all come together so that everybody can experience healing, and we reduce
Yep.
stigma. We have a boxing program. We have a strength and conditioning program, a kung fu program, a
Yep.
group fitness program. We do recovery support services, peer coaching. We mentor people. We help people get hygiene stuff when they get out. We drive them places and we
Yep.
help them. We listen to them complain because I've been there too, and I'll
Yes.
complain to them sometimes. But yeah, that's the whole thing behind it. We work with case management. I teach a class at Arrowhead Correctional Facility every Monday. It's like we do like recovery as it ties to physiology with mental health, 8 dimensions of wellness, strength-based approaches, breath work. Oh man, it's cool. Yeah, I already know that you be on that breath work, bro. I
Yes,
had him
sir.
had him doing the side breaths in there on Monday, man, to
Good.
reduce cortisol levels. And I love breath work because it's like, hey, we're gonna do this right now, and you
Yep.
do it, and everybody's just like, oh, I'm like, see, it works. Like you get to show
Yes.
them, and it's like, just give me
Y-
like 2 minutes, and
Yes.
it's just
Oh,
like,
I love
oh,
that.
yeah.
There's so many more questions I could ask, and we'll do a part two someday, I'm sure. Um, but so let's just say somebody's here listening. Maybe they're an addict, maybe they're not. Because even without addicts, like we all want our life to change to some degree.
Yes.
I mean, a couple years ago, I was 60 pounds overweight, pre-diabetic. I had fatty liver disease. And that was only 2 or 3 years ago. And okay, I never been an alcoholic. I've never been in prison, but it took a lot for my life to change. And I took cues from people like you to change my life. Um, so let's say maybe I'm an addict, maybe I'm not. There's listeners out there that just want to change their life. You've changed everything. We went from 40 years to now you're helping people when they get out. You're alive, you're handsome, you're cool, you're powerful, you're gentle and kind. How does somebody change their life? I mean, I'm here, I want to change my life. Dan Hugill, Dan the doorman. How do I change my life? How does somebody change their life?
Man, Tyler, that's a thing. You might hear this. They do this in the 12 step a lot. It's one of the little cliches is the only thing you have to change is everything. And I think that goes back to the surrenders. You have to, I mean, you either have to be willing, or I hate to say it, you have to get beat down enough to be willing to change.
Yes.
And then once you have the ability to be able to give it up, to surrender that, that's when the magic can start to happen. But the whole thing is you have to put in that work too, because if you just surrender and expect the magic to happen, you just like gave everything away. Now you're just sitting in your own stuff.
Yep.
You have to have people around you. You have to have like like people to follow, to people to learn how to lead. You have to go out and you actually have to serve.
Yep.
Like the first will be last, the last will be first. You have to once you have it, you have to give it to get it back. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and with having a spiritual lens through that, like
Mhm.
following, like I'm obedient to Christ. That's my big thing. If
Sure.
anybody ever asks me, I'm like, they want me to tell my story on the
Yep.
news or something, I'm like, but you want to cut God out, you're cutting out the whole point.
Sure.
Like having that and having the community and just being able to
Yep.
surrender and being able to work, there's so much power in that. When you step out in faith, God meets you.
Yep. So if I'm sitting here in my bed, haven't been out of bed for 8 days, little hungover, what's the next right step? Or say I'm overweight and I want to get healthy. What's the next right step? Give me a practical or tangible thing. How would you, if somebody called you and said, I'm ready to change? Do you tell them to go to a meeting? Do you tell them to read a book? Do you tell them to go on a walk? Like, what's the first step for life change for someone that you're mentoring or coaching?
I'd say go on a walk, but go do it with some people. And I even have people like at our events, you can show up high if you're going to the bridge. Like I'll be like, come to the boxing gym. Like,
Yep.
well, I don't want to get hit in the face. Well, great. You don't have to get hit in the face.
Yep.
I want you to come and I want you to meet some people who are going to speak life into you.
Yep.
And I love that event because everybody's just so they'll stop what they're doing, bleeding out of their nose to meet somebody and pray with them. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, and
I
so
love
once you
it.
meet that, you start to see that people, like if you can see how genuinely people do care
Yep.
and then like we're gonna do this, you can go walk, we're gonna make this work for you, like
Yes.
well like I'll even sit down with people and I'll go over food with them if
Yep.
they want to. I know
Yep.
food can be a little bit, you got to be a little trauma informed with it with some people, which is great
Sure.
and understandable, but like it's like well, that's what we do. We're equipped to that. If we can give you a physical foundation, there's so much magic in walking. Walking, it helps you correct your posture, it lubricates your joints, it helps with circulation,
So good.
oxygenation of the blood. Oh, it's magical.
Yeah.
But that's what I do, Tyler. As I'd like we're going to see what starting with community looks like for you because recovery is not cookie cutter, and that could be
Yes.
recovery, that could be just changing your life. It's not. It's different for everybody.
Yes.
Everybody looks different.
Mhm.
It's as unique as you are, and let's find out what that uniqueness looks like and make it work for you.
So good. I think to me, the theme as we wrap up here, it's so interesting to me, but the theme is community.
Yes,
Like ultimately, community is what got you into addiction. Like you
yes,
wanted that connection with people, that core desire to be connected. But in the same sense, community is what got you out. And that a perverted or a misconstrued sense of community is what often leads to our greatest sufferings, and yet a healthy and beautiful community is what leads us to our ultimate healing. I mean, you didn't speak too many words without mentioning other people for the last hour, and community is everything.
stronger together.
Yes, stronger together. Dan, where can people find you? If they want to get involved, if they need help from you or they want to support you, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you?
Oh yeah, that's you can find me. You can email me, Dan at thebridge.life. I'm on social media, Facebook, Dan Hugill. The Bridge is on Facebook and Instagram. Uh,
Yep.
Instagram, I'm SoberMonk719. You just put in Dan Hugill. Everybody can connect with me on
Great.
those however they would like to. I'd love to answer questions. I'd love to get people involved. That's what it's about. That's what I'm here for.
Love it. And I'll put all that info in the show notes. Dan Hugel, what an honor. I can't wait to do this again. We'll do a part two someday without a doubt. I love you, bro. I'm so
I
proud
love
of
you
you.
too.
I'm better because you exist, man.
I'm better because you exist, Tyler. Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor. It was so good to get spend some time with you today.
Awesome, bro. Peace.
Peace, bro.